It is the Sabbath. The Sabbath continues and always rock and rolling for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the electricians, the plumbers, the bakers, the grocery store clerks. I was a bit moody earlier. I went and did some shoveling of the snow and I went right across the street and saw a little bit of sunlight. Got a few minutes, 3.5 minutes of sunlight. So I felt a bit better, but then I was a bit moody and now I'm a bit moody, but now I feel much better. But had some exploration. I was thinking about the trees and analyzing the big trees here in because some of the trees in my neighborhood had cracked, the big branches as they do here in Montreal, the island of the Hawk. And I was thinking strategically, I was saying that, cities should be maybe doing an inspection sometimes. Just go a ladder and just shake the branches, see if they're steady, especially because if they fall on children and the youth and even the elderly and anybody, any citizen or on the car, it could damage in the house. So I think that should be a regular occurrence, where we could have that in the island of Montreal as an idea, but just on the streets because they seem to be in the past 3.5 years. A lot of them have been falling, and even in my neighborhood, just across the street, during the stormy seasons and when it's very windy, we see them cracking and it can fall, on different citizens, as you can see from years and years in the past in my videos when I go to Mount Royal that I always warn people because they're in the forest atop the mountain. In the forest atop the mountain, you see those trees, they fall and the branches fall. And even here in my neighborhood, you can see every year almost there's branches that fall during storms. And I was just exploring that a bit. I had a little chit chat with the neighbors, a little Aspiesque, and I was meditating with my neurodivergent brain. I said, well, we have to, the pressure applied on the branches and the thickness and the length is there's a lot of science and mathematics, to how much pressure they can withstand until they crack. So we would have to actually test them out and then analyze how much rain it is, how much snow it is, and how much the power of the winds are to apply that pressure, and how much. I was thinking of a system mathematically, in the streets of Montreal to have layers of different streets and basically have like codes of yellow is part dangerous, green is okay, safe. Then you have red, and you have other colors, and red would be the more dangerous zone, and then orange would be a more less dangerous zone, and then yellow would be an okay but somewhat dangerous zone, and green would be okay, and like five type of levels of assessment on different trees and different points on a map. I was kind of mathematically involved in the way that it's a big scientific with my brain, my Aspie brain, while at the same time I was saluting my Pope the King, the sun on the Sabbath, who now rises and now sets. It is still the Sabbath until tomorrow, Super Bowl day, and I got some coffee and just wanna not spend so much time, but gonna watch some. I watch some geopolitics, and we're gonna rock and roll it, but gonna do a little meditation, a little bit of meditation here on this Sabbath day, and got some from my anonymous friend, and got some coffee with a little bit of cognac, so gonna cheer on health, strength, and wealth and regeneration. Mm, good ratio of coffee, and this is lemon, so that's what I gotta do. And yeah, I got some sweets I put in here on the new table, so yeah, I was doing that meditation, as I always do, a little bit of a meditations are always kind of constant with yours truly, either geopolitics, rock and roll, and when I go on my marches, you can see that because of this neurodivergence, I stare at objects. And I guess my neighbor, we have an understanding with my neighbors also because some of my neighbors know that I have Asperger's, HFA, functioning autism, and I was just taking a little bit of sunlight after doing the shoveling in front, and he did a little bit of joke. We joked a little bit, and I kind of understood the joke. Some jokes I understand, and sometimes we're direct and straightforward. And we have a little bit more misunderstandings in the social spheres, but we can build bridges, small, medium, large, and extra large. Because I'm part of the tiny minority of citizens who live with Asperger's, aka high functioning autism. So my brain is different. The Aspie brains are different, and we're often misunderstood. But with my neighbors, I establish a cordial relationship. But I was meditating at the end because the way I said it, straightforward and direct, is there something else? It was maybe a bit socially rough, so I was meditating because I said, "Is there something else?" And maybe socially, it's just we don't mean to be offensive or rude or abrasive, but gotta recommend the book "Appreciating Asperger Syndrome," appreciating Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a great book parallel to teaching Asperger's students social skills through acting. All their world is a stage, and there's a book that I strongly recommend in the valuation thereof. But yeah, it's I was so deeply immersed in meditations and about this plan, for security, safety in terms of the trees, because there's tall trees, big trees, and big branches that fall even in my neighborhood every year. Every time there's a big storm, right next to, sometimes right next to like 44 feet, and even 13 yards and 11 yards and 15 yards, right? In front of my home, my own home. Here is not, I'm not circled by any big tree, so in my area, my specific place, I live in an underground basement, but it's not really that much danger for tall trees. But right next door to my neighbors and the other neighbors, and in the front in the park, there's a higher risk. So I was looking at the branches, and I was kind of seeing there was a big sunlight, and I was kind of meditating, kind of are they half broken, and they kind of look a bit crooked because with the sun and that angle is kind of hard to tell, and to see if they're safe enough, we would have to go on the ladders, go up there in the trees, because they're tall trees, right? They're like 20, 44 yards, and maybe not 44 yards, but they're high, a few feet. They're like, yeah, 44 feet. They could be 44 feet or more. They're tall trees, right? So would have to go and inspect and just apply some pressure to see how safe they are, the branches, because some of the trees are not that healthy. Although we're kind of in recovery mode for many trees, but I was just meditating on that, and actually was thought of a system that we could have to also advise citizens, of the branches, to be aware of it, with the storms and all that, So because just last year, actually, I saw a big branch falling. It was not my street, but parallel. So parallel my street. There's streets that are parallel going north south, not east west. So north south in the island of the Hawk. Keep in mind that I'm discussing a north south trajectory. So parallel to north south, south north, parallel to my street. In adjacent is east and west, right? Because now I'm facing the south. In the back of me is the north, and my cup is to the east. This hand is to the west. This hand is to the east. I'm facing the point. The finger is pointing south, south, south. So just keep that in mind. So, anyways, here's the Sabbath and doing a little bit of meditation. Always geopolitics, but try to limit myself and do some meditation. I was a bit moody, and it's when I said it was a bit more straightforward, maybe questioning if it was a bit maybe abrasive, but my neighbor is aware of my neurological condition, Asperger's, and it's just because I wanted to engage furthermore on the topic, because I actually was meditating deeply. And so I said, is there anything else? But maybe it was a bit like direct and straightforward. Is there anything else? Like maybe it seemed a bit like rough, because sometimes, and I was just, is there something else? Basically, I was in reference to what I mentioned about the potential trees, the security trees, because it was a big concern. You can see even for years and years ago, when you can check in my past videos from 3.5, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, that when I go to the mountain, I always let people know, warn them, and I show on camera the branches that fall from the trees. And I even have it caught on camera when I'm atop the mountain, Mount Royal in the forest. I caught it on in one of the videos. You hear the branch fall, and I turn the camera, and you can see like the branch fall. But it wasn't close to me, but it was about half a football field uh, away from me. So I wasn't in direct risk. There wasn't no danger to my body, physical presence, but that's happened several times that the branches fall next to me. Sometimes they're closer, sometimes I remember the closest one was about, I would say, about 25 yards, the closest one. But that one that I caught it on camera was, you could see part of it, like the bottom type on the film, about like 3.5 seconds, like, and hear the noise. This was about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, on one of the videos atop the mountain Mara, which I do many. So that was something which I was thinking about today. And my brain is different, and Aspie brains basically are fundamentally different. The way we process information is different. It's not bad or evil or negative, but it's just, of course, just different in terms of how we process information. So sometimes these more social dynamics can be more difficult. We have a tendency sometimes to be, we can be funny, we can be all the things that neurotypicals are, but sometimes maybe might seem too straightforward and direct, you know. But that's why I don't want to waste anybody's time. If you're 18 and over, 18 plus for that play, you want to be a friends with benefits
You were taught
because
to be
your
kind.
legions, and kindness and goodness and kindness is good, but it's also people have to appreciate it, you know. 'Cause I had to learn the hard way sometimes with my neurological condition, which can be often misunderstood. And I have to stress in every video that the problem with Aspies in my community, although we're less than 1%, I do have to mention again because it's super important, and we really have to work on it. As I rock and
The
roll this cup
picture
of coffee and
quality is
mention the
amazing on the
firefighters,
new
the
Emirates
butchers, the
selfie.
makers, the nurses, the doctors, the plumbers, the electricians, and the truckers and the nurses now finishing their 12-hour shift, and all the train conductors and the public workers, and those brothers and sisters of ours who are not perfect. Nobody is, not the institution, not the individual, not myself, with no pretense. I do rock and roll with no pretense, but brothers and sisters keeping us safe, and wishing my brothers and sisters who live in tough times now rehabilitation. You know, I know actually my theories protocols are what needs to be implemented with a total rehabilitation for the North American Collective 24/7. You know, gotta salute the truckers, the bakers. I got some bread, so gotta salute that wheat for the breaking. I gotta be, of course, on that rock and rolling for the left and the right and in the middle, and to get, of course, the correlational aspects of Asperger's. And what's important is that we work on the unemployment, because it's 80 more than 80% of Aspies, although we're a tiny small fraction of the population. 80%. Imagine how horrible that is. And it's unfortunate that the Canadian unemployment went down. But think about it. Yes, okay, we're a tiny small population. Not a lot of people know what autism, HFA, high functioning autism, and Asperger's is. But 80% unemployment. Can you imagine that? 4 out of 5 are unemployed. That's really my only stress now. It's financial. But as I rock and roll, and I'm pretty joyous, pretty physically active. I guess vigorous. But sometimes I still get moody, like today. But I'm gonna be eating. I have some sweets. I have some coffee. I have the internet connection. So I paid my rent for the month of February. It's February 7th. Paid my rent. Paid my electricity bill. Go Hydro Quebec. Go. This electricity is zero pollution, and got some of the there's about the good Netflix connection and internet connection and Netflix, and of course all that concomitant relationships where we have to establish ourselves in the Concordia today to move forward for tomorrow is the building of the bridges, and of course the to fix the problem of unemployment. It requires direct action and mass public profit partnership. My idea is Trinity or TVs, pledge allegiance, legions, or friends with benefits. If you're black or white or black, gotta send some loving and hugs, because that's what I got on this Black History Month for the North American Collective. Is North American Unite, and always for the 10, the 50, and the 3 for the 63, sending some loving for my brothers and sisters. Pledge allegiance, legions.